Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to your fave film critic. This is episode 23 of season 1 of the pod, hosted, created by, recorded by, conjured by, alchemized by your favorite film critic, me, Dom Griffin. And this is going to be a very special episode. So here's the thing. I don't know how well you're going to be able to tell this after I'm done editing this, but there are 5 incredibly large industrial-sized fans in my apartment right now that I have to keep running for the next 24 hours at least, because I had a leak in my apartment. It's a whole thing. I'll talk about it a little bit, but I literally cannot hear myself think in my apartment. It's insane. But I did a little audio test. I recorded some audio and then I futzed with it using plugins and stuff. And to me anyway, it seemed listenable and at least releasable. But obviously, it's kind of hard to really trust your studio monitor headphones when there's an enormous fan right behind you. So I say all that to say, I don't know if this episode actually is going to be listenable. I feel like I'll be able to make it tolerable. And I'm probably going to have to mix it with my noise canceling Bluetooth headphones on. I kind of hate editing with wireless headphones, but whatever. I was just going to scrap this episode, and I'll get into why. But then I was like, you know what, man? Fuck it. Let's just try. And then, worst case scenario, if this is just a shitty episode and people don't like it or whatever, then hey, we gave it a try, right? I mean, that's important. Trying is important, I think. You will also notice if you were watching this on YouTube that I decided to not record video at all for this. I was like, you know what? Let me just see if I can make it listenable. I haven't decided what I'm going to put on the screen for this entire time. I might just make it one funny image. I have not decided yet, but we'll see. After some of your feedback from last episode about whether or not you guys care if I'm on camera during the video version, I had enough people comment and then also reach out to me privately about it, which was kind of weird. Essentially, I feel like I'm just going to have to stay in it. But I did think, you know what, let me just one time try to not be on camera while I do this and see how that goes. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe I'll, be freer because I'll be less self-conscious. I don't know. We're going to find out together. But, yeah, we'll get into so this episode is going to be, we're still going to, I guess, stick to the same format we always do. The questions at the end, that'll be normal. Some of the stuff I talk about in terms of news, that'll be normal. What I watched, I didn't watch any movies this week. I watched one TV thing and then a lot of wrestling, so I'm just going to talk about those two things and hope that no one is bored by them. But I'm just going to lead in with just a lot of just regular, personal, this is what's happening in my life this week stuff. So I feel like I'll make sure to timestamp everything the best I can so that you can, if you so choose your own adventure and hop around to the shit you don't care about. I feel like that would only be the right thing to do for people. But yeah, so it's been a very long week since the last time I spoke to you all on the last episode. I worked the entire weekend, which is fine. This is kind of my job. I had a really bad weekend at work. It was horrendous. I'm not going to tell the whole story of what really made work so bad, because I feel like it's also probably not a good idea to talk about it publicly. But I fucked something up pretty badly. I'm trying to think of how much depth to give this, but look, basically, one of the hardest things about running a movie theater that people don't really talk about, I don't think, is it's a little bit less like having to run a restaurant or something like that, or a retail store, and a little bit more like running a hotel. just in the sense that people stay there with you for longer. So you're sort of like responsible, not just for their safety, I mean, obviously, but just, like their, I guess well-being is just another phrase for safety, but like, you have to make sure people are like good. You have to like diffuse fights that kind of arise. You have to, it's a lot. A lot of the things that I genuinely think I'm good at about my job are things that are like not easily quantifiable things. They're not things that I can just like look at someone and be like, this is why I'm indispensable, because they're things that like aren't, I can't put it in Excel. You know what I mean? I can't like, a lot of the like people skills, I guess, that I would say that I possess are not things you can easily, or maybe someone smarter could, but I'm not very good at it. So, but I would say one thing about myself in my history in this role, in this job, is that I have like a pretty impeccable record of handling like difficult situations, whether that be like interpersonal human resources stuff with like the actual staff, or issues with our guests and things that arise during screenings and stuff. Like I have what I consider to be a pretty exceptional record of just handling stuff that happens. I have plenty of stories about insane things I've dealt with at work. I am likely not going to tell any of them here on this podcast, but I have them. I have a lot of them. In the course of, like 14 years of managing, minus like a year and a half of COVID and minus a year and a half of like having left the industry for a little bit. So like, let's say a decade. We'll just call it a decade, whatever. Of course, a decade of doing this, like I've experienced a lot of things. And once or twice, I've had mixed feelings about the way I handled a situation, and then like kind of like ran it over in my head and kind of been like, did I do the right thing? Is it the best way to handle that? And I try to just do better next time. I've even had a couple of situations where I worried that what I did was the wrong thing, and then I had to like write a long email to my boss being like, hey, I think I might have fucked up, but da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm almost always like, no, you did that fine. No one cares. Like, you did a great job, whatever. I have 3 times this year I've met with my boss who's based out of state, and she's come to visit, and I've done this kind of like self-deprecating routine about ways that I think I am deficient and not as good at this job as I used to be, and ways that my colleagues are better and stuff. And like, she's always responded kind of being like, why do you say this? She always seems a mixture of confused and annoyed. She's like, we think you're great. Everybody thinks you're great. Like your building is really busy. Like it's, like one of the anchors of the circuit. Like, everyone values what you do. And I'm like, yeah, but I always feel like everyone values the other people that do what I do more than me. And that just might be a me thing, but it's a thing I deal with at work, whatever. But in this case, I handled a situation involving some guests, and I handled it in a pretty flippant manner. And within 15 minutes of what I did, I didn't assault anybody or anything. I want to be clear about that. But after about 15 minutes of what I did, I felt a lot of guilt. I felt really bad. I was like, I really think I mishandled that. Part of the situation involved me having to be the arbiter of whether or not someone was telling the truth. And in general, I do think that one of my personal skills is I'm very good at telling when someone is lying to me to my face. Via text, my percentage goes down. Via whatever, you know what I mean? But like face-to-face, in person, we're occupying the same space, we're breathing the same air. If someone lies to me, I can usually tell. I don't know how I got this good at it, but I don't know. I'm very observant about people and stuff, and I understand motivations and the reasons people lie and why. I get lying pretty well. I don't know. So in this case, I thought someone was lying to me, and then 10 minutes later, after like really mulling it over, I felt they weren't. I felt like they were innocent of what they were accused of, and that maybe my reaction was pretty harsh given the circumstances. I felt terrible. And it was a long day. That whole day was just like horrendous and awful. So like, I'm not surprised that I wasn't my best. But then the next night was also shitty. The whole day, everything sucked. And someone representing one of the parties involved in my fuck up called me and just like reamed me on the phone for like an hour. There were a lot of like threats, some of them litigious. and it was one of the most just like mentally exhausting things I think I've ever experienced in my life. And I feel like that's kind of dramatic to say, but later in this diaristic story, I guess it'll make a little bit more sense. Is that I it was really hard, and like I don't want to say I thought I was going to get fired. I did not think I was going to get fired. The one thing I really have going for me professionally is that I don't think anyone else wants my job. Um, so like anytime, I mean, I feel like I would have to like really, I might have to like kill someone for them to want to actually fire me, because the immediate conversation would be, well, who the hell else is going to do this? Uh, there's not a lot of people chomping at the bit to replace me. But having that person, I'm trying to be vague, and I don't know if I sound like an asshole for being vague, but I just feel like it's probably better to not get into details. Anyway, that person was really pretty rough to me. I feel like they had a right to be. I feel like I was in the wrong, and it just turned into like Jake LaMotta getting punched in Raging Bull, but like verbally. You know what I mean? It was like I was already feeling guilty myself. I was already wrestling with a lot of things, and then it was just sort of like, okay, well, this person's just going to go off on me. I probably deserve it. I'm just going to take it. As you can tell from me saying the phone call lasted nearly an hour. Who else would have taken that for an hour but someone who uh, wanted that to happen to them? I don't know. I'm not trying to psychoanalyze myself. Whatever. Anyway, the weekend was terrible. And that thing essentially kind of like really, really took a lot out of me, on top of everything else about the job. It takes a lot out of me and everything else. And then I mentally had some like space this week that was going to be what I thought was like good kind of uh, like recharge space. Do you know what I mean? I was like, okay, this day after work I can do this, then I can do this video, and then I can do this thing that's like more for recreation. Like I had like some stuff planned for my week, and then someone on my team has some pretty intense health issues. So Tuesday, a day I'd planned to like come home and record this video that I promised for the last like 4 episodes of the goddamn podcast. I ended up having to cover for someone, so I ended up working like a 14-hour day. I did not get to do anything, and I got home very late, and then I had to go right back the next day. And even then, I was like, okay, if this next day, if I can just get through the day, when I get home, I can still pull it off. I think I can still make it happen, and that'll make me feel very good. I can get the video up on Thursday, and then Thursday night I'll do the pod. This is gonna be great. Like I'm gonna reclaim my week. I know things have been rough, but I'm gonna do it, man. I felt pretty good about myself in this plan. And then oh, I completely fucking forgot. Part of the other reason why I was so stressed about all this stuff is that like the CEO of like the chain that I work for was coming to visit, and I had never met him before. And we've talked before, obviously, but I've never met him. And he was coming to do a visit, and like I don't know, the whole thing was a little bit stressful. And the nature of the visit was one that I would have to probably stay late at work until he like showed up, because he had a weird itinerary. So that also made it feel like it was going to be a really tight thing of getting home to do this video. It was like, all right, I'm going to get home late anyway, but I think we can still do it, man. I feel like it's possible. But then about an hour into not even an hour, I guess, like right when I got to work, uh, my girlfriend had to inform me that our washing machine just like, I still actually don't know the exact dimensions of what happened, but basically our washing machine like fucked up and started like heavily leaking water. And as she was trying to mitigate it and tell me about it, our building's handyman came to tell us that it was actually leaking into the below floor, like the apartment below us, and it ended up going like 4 levels down. So like 3 other apartments experienced damages from this. I feel very guilty on a personal level, but like this is a situation where like I just have a super fucking old washer. Like there was no way for us to know that it like had any issues with it. And like the second we found out, it just did all this stuff to these people. I talked to a repair guy today who was like, dude, it's just an old thing. These things happen. This is not your fault. Those people are not going to blame you. Always good when like fucking repairmen can look at you and tell that you're like having existential dread and want to help you. But they had to, have like a restoration service come in here and like they had to cut up a bunch of the carpet, and the floor, like the baseboards, had to go. It was like a lot of stuff. They had to do like surgery on the apartment, basically. And my apartment's not very big anyway. I feel like a big reason why I switched to sort of doing the green screen backdrop in my videos was like I'm constantly having to move things around for storage and stuff, and it's really hard to keep my kind of creative working space presentable for camera. And having a collapsible green screen just seemed like the easiest way to mitigate that for the foreseeable future. But anyway, the way the leak spread made it like I had to move so much stuff around my apartment to even accommodate them taking the carpet up. It was a nightmare. And then when they did all that and they cleaned up and stuff and they whatever sanitized, they were like, all right, we have to leave these giant fucking fans here to dry up all this moisture all over the place because obviously that could have adverse effects and stuff. So there went that. Even if I could have like mustered up the creative energy to like finish getting the video prepared to record, even forgetting like the actual audio problem that is still persisting, but I think I might have had a workaround. You will find out if I did or not. I couldn't hear myself fucking thinking here, man. It was like very... Like, at first it was kind of bad. And I was like, this is really loud, but it's not that bad. You know, my girlfriend and I just have to, like, yell at each other. Like Bruce and Vicky when they're having dinner from across that long table in Batman, 1989. Like that, but, like, worse. And for a little bit to relax, I had noise-canceling headphones on. I was just, like, looking at TikToks and stuff. Getting weirdly emotional about TikTok. I saw a TikTok. It was an interview with Ben Affleck and Michael B. Jordan from that Actors on Actors thing Variety does. If you see that interview, watch the whole thing. It's actually like really, really good. But there's a segment about Ben Affleck talking about sort of being Michael B. Jordan's mentor and the way he like has helped him over the years and stuff, which like I never knew that they even knew each other. It was really, really moving. I got very emotional. It reminded me of a very good friend of mine, my friend Justin. I told him so. There's just sort of a goodness to it that you don't see very often, I suppose. And it was like, that's really nice. But anyway, it also had just been, as you can tell, a very long week, and like I get emotional pretty easily. Not like in real life stuff. Like this leak thing didn't bother me, or it bothered me, but I couldn't like I didn't feel anything until I think I watched that TikTok, because that's just how I am. I have to see some sort of external piece of media to trigger my feeling receptors. And also, I still can't feel the right side of my face, the thing I talked about from last week. And I have to see it in their specialist, but they feel like it's stress-induced, which I'm not surprised by. So anyway, I was listening to TikToks and music with noise-canceling headphones on, and I got pretty comfortable. I felt a little more relaxed. I was like, you know what, this is a rough day, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been. I feel like the people directly below us are probably haven't had a worse experience. So like I don't feel comfortable really complaining to this degree, but it felt fine. And then I took the headphones off because I was going to go to bed, and then I remembered how loud it was, and I was like, holy shit! Like I can't just have headphones on constantly, but it's just really fucking loud. Not to mention, like, the fans are all over the place, so I have to, like, it's very weird to, like, get to different things in my apartment. It's a whole thing. So, what's today? Then I had to miss meeting the CEO guy, and, like, I thought, maybe that was just a blessing in disguise, but then I was urged to find the time to see him in the morning, so I did meet him today. And then it actually went pretty well. I'm not going to complain about that, or talk about it for that matter, but, today I just felt like, alright, well, the video never happened. Okay. Mercury got in a retrograde yesterday. Maybe I'm just not gonna I'm just gonna send out a tweet being like, alright, I know I said the season finale was on the 22nd. It's now. We're just done for the year. I've been kind of pushing myself in a lot of different ways, a little bit too hard for a little bit too long. And part of me wondered if, like, this thing happening was not just, like, the universe being like, can you chill? Can you just stop for a little while, Can you just stop trying to jam square blocks into round pegs? Can you just, like, fucking take a step back, brother, So I wasn't gonna record anything. And then like a couple of hours ago, I was just sitting there and I was listening to the A Show, my friend Justin and Neil's wrestling podcast. One of my favorite podcasts. I don't listen to very many podcasts, but their show is always really good. I was listening to the show and I was like, man, like I started thinking about how infrequently they have ever like had like skip weeks and stuff. Like those two men have just been grinding it out for a really long time, and I was like, and that's also two adult men with jobs who have to like coordinate each other's schedules and stuff to make this work. And like for me, this is just me. You know what I mean? Like there's not any. It's just me. I don't have to like liaison with anybody. So if I have a breakdown of not being able to do the podcast, it's like it's just me kind of giving up. And I just didn't kind of want to, I was like, that's not true. I wanted to very badly. But the wanting to made me not want to. It was like, you should just fucking do it. Like, God, is it that hard? You just talk. You just talk at people. You fucking love to talk. You're such a goddamn blabbermouth, Is it that hard? So that's why we're here now. And I don't know, I've just been really burnt out for a very long time. I feel like the first half of my year at work was like trying to mitigate the business not doing really well, and that makes it very hard. It's running a movie theater that's not making money is like hell. Something breaks, you have to jerry rig it because no one wants to pay for it because you're not making any money. Your staff is just like unhappy because there's not enough hours to go around. Customers come and they're kind of annoyed that you don't have better movies or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just like it's bad all around. And in the second half of this year, Barbenheimer happened. We were so busy that we couldn't even like breathe or rest really. And I had an episode on here. I talked about my little like vacation where all I did was watch horror movies. But even that week, I had a lot of stuff I was going through and kind of dealing with that I didn't talk about that made it not feel like a real break. So when I went back to work, to me, I feel like I've just been running nonstop all year. Is how I feel, and I hate it. It's very difficult for me to like prioritize my own like I don't want to say my own wellness. I think I've done I think I've done a very good job these last few months of prioritizing my own health. Numb face aside, I think I've done a really good job of like eating better and losing weight and like not watching my sodium and all that shit. I think I've done great at that. But it's still just like an uphill battle for me to do I don't know, to make my own rest and recharging period like a priority. And I feel like anytime I plan, some other shit just gets in the way, and like I don't talk about it publicly much, and I don't even I'm gonna be very honest, I have a lot of friends. This is not me saying that to say like I'm really popular, I'm like great or something. I'm just saying I happen to be blessed with a lot of really good friends. And I don't just mean acquaintances or people that I know or whatever. I mean people that I consider very close friends, people that I would like, it's dramatic to say who I would die for, but it's the truth. I really care about the people and they care about me, and it's great. But even with that, with the number of friends that I have, which is like a ton, not bragging, is that I don't tell all of them everything all the time. I've got like 3 friends who I'm like constantly sort of unloading real shit at, but for the rest, otherwise, I don't tell as many people. For one, because if I told everybody, half of my day would be telling people things, and then a lot of the things are they're wrapped up in like my own like quirks and stuff, and I don't always like explaining myself to people. So I have a couple of friends that I talk to every single day who just get me on like a deeper level and like happen to know me really, really, really specifically, and like they've experienced certain things with me alongside me, so it's not as hard anyway to just like tell them the raw, all the like kind of unvarnished or whatever. But I otherwise just don't. I just kind of keep it to myself, and like earlier I talked about lying, right? And when you manage any kind of business and you have employees, people lie to you. Your staff lies to you a lot. When I was an employee, I lied to like my bosses all the time. Like sometimes you just got it. I'm sorry. Sometimes you have pneumonia, but you don't because you're hungover or something. I don't ever actually get mad when employees lie to me, uh, as long as they put like sufficient effort into the deception. I don't get offended because I've let someone off the hook for something, and they'll walk out the room, and their manager will be like, he's lying, right? And I'm like, yeah, he was, but I mean, look at he put work into that. That was a good performance. I respect that. I'm not gonna fucking write him up. I mean, he has his own reason for why he did that, but he gave me the respect of lying to me. Is actually kind of how I looked at it, which I know is a weird way to look at it, but that's how I feel about people lying to me at work. Customers, I don't care what their reason is. They're awful. But I say that all to say something that happens a lot when you deal with people and you have to fire people or whatever is like people will make stuff up, and they make stuff up in this really fake way where it's like, okay, if everything really happened to you like that in this span of time, you were either lying to me for dramatic effect, or you have the worst fucking luck. You know what I mean? I have really bad luck, and I'm not even a person that believes in luck necessarily. I'm not trying to skirt personal responsibility or imply that anything that goes wrong in my life is not my fault or something like that. That's not what I mean. I just mean, like, typically speaking, just like my best laid plans don't go well, and a lot of just frustrating shit just fucking comes in my way, and has been like that for quite a bit. And it's easier to not tell everyone every like challenge that you're facing, because the way I see it is it's like it's just gonna sound like I'm making it up. I always feel like it's going to sound like I am making this up for attention or something, and I would just rather not do that to people. People's time is precious, attention is precious. So, you know, like, I will tell people when I've had a rough day, and I'm not like, I don't hide my emotions or pretend to be happy or things like that, but, sometimes I'll talk to, yeah, I have friends that I talk to less frequently, just, sometimes there's people you talk to every day, there's people you talk to once a week, whatever, and sometimes I'll talk to my, like, whatever, once a week friends, and one of my best friends, we were talking last week, and he was like, how you been, man? And, like, I said, it's been a really bad week. And he was like, you said that the last, like, 6 weeks. And I was like, yeah, I really did. And, like, at first I was like, you know what? This is a perspective thing. I gotta change my perspective. I need to be more positive. I don't, you know, I have to stop looking at it in that way. But then I actually, like, sat and, like, journaled out a list of things that made me think it was a bad week. And I was like, you know what? No, I take it back. These are all objectively shitty things. These are all, like, super fucking stressful. And oftentimes the friends that I actually am really, really, transparent about my issues with are always just kind of like, I don't know why you're not dead. Like, I would probably have just thrown in the towel. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm, like, not allowed, and I'm not gonna or anything. I think it's good to have friends in your life who, like, struggle similarly to you. Not to say that you should surround yourself by people who are struggling or something, but it can be very good to have people that know where you're coming from and get it. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And I want to be clear, it's not like I'm, like, hiding anything from my friends. It's not like I have, like, a secret drug problem or something like that. It's more just, like, I like the people in my life a lot. I care about them a lot. And, like, I don't want to always be, like, a bummer. I don't always want to be, like, getting into heavy shit or complaining. I hate complaining to people. It's like, oh my god, I fucking hate it. Which is weird because I'm a person that I let people complain to me all the time at work and in life, whatever. I think it's important that people are heard and speak their piece and stuff, and I like being able to do that for people. But I hate doing it myself. I hate it. Someone will tell me, like, a whole thing about, like, whatever they're complaining about, and I'll be there for them, and they'll be like, what about you? And I'm like, nope, don't want to do it. No, thank you. Don't want to be perceived today. Don't want any of that, thank you. Other than, like, a few who, like, have, established a level of trust, I suppose, where it's like, I know I can talk about this and it's not going to be a whole thing. This person's going to get what I mean. I'm not going to have to, like, give a whole preamble, But, I say all that to say, Jesus Christ, I say all that to say that, it's been, like, the last 3 months specifically have been, like, really, really fucking exhausting. And I feel like every week some new fucking thing falls in my path. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job of dealing with most of it, for the most part. But I just am someone who will just push and push and push until I'm just like completely tapped out. The other day we'll talk about wrestling a little bit more later, unfortunately, but the other day I was thinking about a wrestler who used to be one of my favorite wrestlers, Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, who I still like a lot. He's not, I just don't feel a favoritism to him anymore. And lately, I feel like that guy's just been working hurt and taking a lot of risks and stuff, and it always frustrates me a little bit. Sometimes I'll watch Brian do certain things, and I'm like, dude, why are you doing this? Like, why are you risking your body this way? You have kids, you know what I mean? Like, what is this, dude? And I would find myself kind of harshly judging him. Like, why are you taking these bumps? Like, you're gonna get how many concussions have you had in life, you know? But then I kind of realized that, like, I don't take bumps. I've never had a concussion with my knowledge. But I similarly will burn myself out in that same specific way. And I realized that I was maybe so harsh in my mental criticism of him, because I was really kind of criticizing myself. I was like, well, dude, you know, you don't do any diving headbutts like the Dynamite Kid, but, you know, you do run on empty. You do push yourself too hard sometimes, and hell, it's not even like you're doing it for like the best results or something. It's not like you're pushing yourself so hard and then you can say, look at all this great stuff I did by pushing myself. It's like you pushed yourself and like you still didn't get the fucking outcome you were looking for, you know? So it's like, maybe you should rest more. You should sleep in on occasion. You should nap. You should, you know, whatever. And this particular week, of all the times in the second half of 2023 that I have said this was a bad week, this particular week felt like the worst one. Not because of the specific things. I mean, not because of the league, not because of the person that yelled at me at the phone, not because of working extra long hours. It's more just like the accumulation of this. I've just been burnt out. I'm just like, I've texted several friends this week at some point, and just I'm cooked. I'm cooked, man. Like, I'm cooked. You know, I don't have whatever it is. I am cooked. I'm very tired. So I was originally just going to use that energy to just say, you know what, I'm just tapping out for the year. I'm not doing fucking podcast videos, nothing. I'm just going to stop. But then I thought, maybe better to just get this all out. Maybe better to try to make something this week. So at least people understand where you're coming from. And if they don't, that's okay too. There might be people who listen to this and are like, oh my god, I cannot believe this man talked for a fucking half hour about this stuff. But maybe there's going to be someone who relates or who understands it, and maybe it'll help them in some way. Maybe, I don't know, maybe not. But I think it helped me a little bit just to kind of get some of that stuff off my chest. But yeah, so I'm not going to completely give up on the channel for the year, but I am going to stick to next week's episode. Episode 24 will be the end of the pod for the year, and then we'll come back with a new season and some changes. I am hoping to get one more video out before the year. This big video, not even big, but a video that is going to cover like the 7-8 reviews, like I say to everybody now, that I've just not done. For my own edification, if nothing else. Even though I'm going to be kind of late on some of them, I got to get them out. But then, yeah, other than that, I'm not gonna push myself. I have like one other deadline in a couple of days, and then I'm gonna have so much to juggle with work and the holidays and having to work through the holidays that I'm just gonna have to scale this back. And hopefully, doing less every week will, you know, and hopefully the new year actually I can take a little bit of time off. But yeah, I guess I'm just saying, you know, make sure you guys are prioritizing your health and yourselves and your well-being, and not, you know, not burning yourselves out the way I keep doing it. You know, you gotta be good to yourselves. I mean, you guys are all worth it. Oh my god. Okay. That was a lot. It was really heavy. We're gonna talk about the news real quick. So, first thing I guess we'll talk about a little bit is the Golden Globe nominations came out, and I looked at them briefly, and then I just kind of moved on because I just don't care about the Golden Globes. I pay attention to awards stuff more now for my day job than I do as a critic, because like it doesn't matter. Like, who cares? I need to know what movies are favorites for awards and stuff, because a lot of my clientele judges movies based on that, based on those merits or lack thereof. So it's important to me to know what movie these institutions have decided is important, because then I'll have to, prioritize that title at work. I don't like the Golden Globes for a couple of reasons. I don't like that it's movies and TV, because I feel like it's just too much shit to do in one fucking telecast. And I also don't like, specifically, that they split everything into drama and comedy. Musical or comedy, because it just doesn't. For one, if you're going to distinguish drama from comedy, just throwing musical in with comedy doesn't make any goddamn sense to me. But I specifically saw this great tweet. Let me see if I can pull it up. The benefit of not recording this is I use my phone to record all my videos. Now I can just use my phone to look things up, which I always use my burner phone for that when I'm recording. Anyway, there was a tweet from Jacob de Nobel, who's like, really cool dude, really good writer and podcaster, if you guys know him. And he had this tweet. It was like, every single time the Golden Globes come up, I have to remind people of this truly insane Best Picture lineup. And it is an old tweet of his. In 2011, the Best Motion Picture, like the Best Picture award for musical or comedy, the nominees were The Kids Are All Right, which is a pretty good movie, I think directed by Lisa Cholodenko, Alice in Wonderland, the Tim Burton movie, which I've never watched, but it looks like shit, Burlesque with Cher and Christina Aguilera, I forgot that ever came out, Red, the adaptation of a Warren Ellis comic with Bruce Willis, and The Tourist, which is a spy movie with Angelina Jolie and Johnny Depp. So we had 2 Johnny Depp nominees in there. Those 5 movies, so the Golden Globes sometimes get looked at as being like an indicator of the direction of the Oscars, and sometimes there are similarities. But the musical or comedy element means that every year they give awards and nominations to stuff that is never going to win an Oscar, just to fill in those slots. And this year, I noticed... Okay, so, sorry, I'm pulling shit up. So the Best Motion Picture Drama, the nominees are Oppenheimer, great movie. Code of the Flower Moon, great movie. Maestro, pretty good movie, I guess. Past Lives, which I still haven't seen. The Zone of Interest, which I still haven't seen. And Anatomy of a Fall, which I haven't seen. Best Picture, Musical or Comedy, has got Barbie, which, okay, cool. Poor Things, cool. American Fiction, haven't watched that yet. The Holdovers, quite a good movie. May December in musical or comedy, I think is insane. And Air. Again, I don't think that movie is like a comedy. I whatever. And then, the best director nominees, they got Bradley Cooper in here. It feels crazy seeing him next to like Nolan and Scorsese and Yorgos, but he's in there. Props to Greta. There was something I saw where I was like, what in the fuck? Oh, somehow, like Annette Bening is nominated for Best Actress in a Drama, and that movie Nyad looks horrendous. It's these things where you're like, how is this, like, Timothée Chalamet had a nomination for Wonka. I was supposed to go to a screening of that a few days ago, and I did not. The whole thing, to me, is just like, it feels there's too many nominees, and it's like kind of all over the place, and like, quite frankly, the Hollywood Foreign Press just like sucks, and everything about the Golden Globes seems dumb and silly. And we had that one year where like they weren't even on TV, and like just nobody cared, and I feel like maybe we should just stick with that. I think we should just stick to nobody caring about the Golden Globes. This is a pretty good year for movies, I feel like. I feel like there's been a lot of very good films of all types and stuff. I think it's been a pretty, the last couple of years, fucking hell, you know what I mean, for a lot of obvious reasons, but there's lots of great stuff out there right now in this year, and, some of those movies are represented in those nominees, but some of the stuff they just randomly throw in because of we have to fill out the comedy or musical thing is either movies that don't really feel like they belong, or movies that don't seem like they belong in that category. And I wish they would get rid of that, splitting the drama, comedy, musical thing. I think it's so stupid. I also thought it was kind of funny that I don't think The Color Purple, which is like the only like significant musical that came out this year, is nominated for Best Picture for musical comedy. And usually, just making a musical guarantees you that nomination. Like you get right in. So I thought that was kind of curious. Maybe a little schism there. I don't know, but yeah. So that's a Golden Globe. And then I also saw the trailer for The Civil War, the new movie from Alex Garland. Alex Garland, he wrote Sunshine, Dread. Allegedly, was very involved in directing Dread. And then in terms of movies, he did direct Ex Machina, very good movie. Annihilation, which I don't think is a bad movie, but it was not a movie I was really crazy about. And then Men, which I did not watch, but I heard a lot of really awful things about. And something about this trailer, I don't know that it looks bad per se, but if Alex Garland's name and A24 weren't on it, this is a movie that I feel like would be so laughable. My favorite thing I saw was a tweet that said the movie looks like God's Not Dead for liberals, which I think is pretty accurate. And then I saw a really great tweet. Maybe it's good that I normally don't have my phone, so I don't spend the whole time talking about tweets I saw. I saw a pretty great tweet from Brandon Strusnig, really great writer. Instinctively dismissing this, knowing full well if it starred Dolph Lundgren, Louis Mandylor, and any former WWE Intercontinental Champion, was made for significantly less money, had dicey politics, and released directly to Walmart, I'd be calling it one of the year's best. And I was like, yeah, if there was like a weird DTV version of this story, I'd probably fucking check it out. Especially if there's a wrestler in it. That's maybe Scott Adkins or something. But the movie is definitely going to be presented as being like a really serious rumination on how divided our country is. I was just like, dude, I don't want that for fucking any reason. I think the trailer's terrible. I don't want to write off Alex Garland entirely. I mean, he seems like a talented guy. Maybe he'll rebound at some point. But something about the trailer is rubbed me the wrong way. The only thing I saw that I did genuinely like in it is that Jesse Plemons is in it, and he's playing like what is implied to be some sort of conservative soldier. He's got these 6 shades on. And this person's like begging him to not get shot, being like, I'm an American. He was like, well, what kind of American are you? And I was like, oh, hey, cool. This one spot with Jesse Plemons by itself is like a better movie than whatever else I'm seeing here. And I already know he's not the main character, so like, why am I going to care? You know? The minute I saw Nick Offerman as the president, I was like, okay, well, whatever. So we'll see how that goes. But it does sort of feel like A24 is like got the gas on the pedal for their alleged shift towards, more commercial fare. And this movie was obviously developed, I guess, before that initiative, but it just feels like of that wave a little bit. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'll see it, but just did not look great to me. Those are the things I really want to talk about for the news. In terms of stuff that I watched this week, so this past weekend, Saturday, before I went to work, the one kind of cool thing that happened to me was I watched the final 60th anniversary Doctor Who special, The Giggle, where Neil Patrick Harris plays the returning classic Who villain, the Toymaker, who Michael Gough played in an old serial with the first Doctor. And it was a pretty good special. I thought it was a pretty good episode. I think the second special was slightly better, which a lot of people seem to agree with, but this one was mostly pretty good. I feel like I haven't watched Doctor Who in a while, and then I started like watching the specials. I'm going to watch the new series when it launches on Christmas, and I kind of forgot that as a show, it's a show where like when it's good, it's really great, and when it's in any way not good, it is like laughably bad and embarrassing. And I can't think of anything else in popular culture that has this particular sort of divide, where you'll see one scene that's like so deep and so powerful and hits you really hard and going to stick with you forever, and then the very next scene is like some bullshit. some like super fucking weird bullshit. It feels maybe the most like comic books to me, because like comic can be that way. Not a lot of TV shows, but Doctor Who was like that, where you'll be like, yeah, oh no, a lot. But I like the giggle. The controversial ending, where spoilers for the giggle if you haven't watched it. The controversial ending where, I'm serious, spoilers. If you don't want this ruined, just fucking scrub through or something. The controversial ending where David Tennant does not, as the 14th Doctor, the 10th Doctor's face coming back to the Doctor's face, he doesn't regenerate into the 15th Doctor, played by Shutagawa. It has what they call a bi-generation. He splits into two people, so the 14th Doctor doesn't die, and then the 15th Doctor comes out with no pants on. And they, beat the villain and stuff, and the rationale is like, the 14th Doctor, which is, it's the same character throughout all these years, you just, different actors, has essentially never taken a break, never stopped running. And now he can, like, settle down and stay with Donna, like this companion he had abandoned before, and be with her family and stuff. It's not like a romantic thing. It's kind of like he's like her brother or something. And he gets his own TARDIS, but he's not going to go anywhere except occasionally off camera, off screen. And he's just going to live a happy life here. And it also sort of implies that's how he, maybe he grows into being Tom Baker's the curator character from the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor. But I thought it was cool in the sense that it felt like Russell T Davies being like, we're putting a period on the Doctor up to now. That character that you all know and love is finally getting a happy ending. He's getting the Bruce at the end of The Dark Knight Rises. And that they put David Tennant as the one that gets that happy ending feels like, he's been the face of New Who the longest, and especially when the show blew up. It feels like, hey, we're done with that now. Now Ncuti's going to go off and have his own adventures, and he's still the Doctor, he still has all those memories, he's still that same person, but we're probably going to do a little bit less dealing with the same ongoing themes and stuff. We're not going to deal with the Time War as much. We're not going to deal with, like, building on every old Dalek story or what have you. It seemed like it created some runway for some really cool stuff, potentially. And my main reason for sort of believing that is just that I think Ncuti looks amazing. I know girls have wanted to fuck David Tennant for a long time, and like Matt Smith was a heartthrob despite his face looking so unique. But Ncuti's like the first Doctor ever who's like genuinely hot. Is just very obviously and very clearly like a sexy being. And based on set photos and stuff and the trailers, he has a lot of cool outfits. He's got some swagger to him. He seems fun. He seems like a genuinely fun actor to play this part. And I'm looking forward to the Christmas special that fully introduces him. I mean, he has like 10 minutes or less of screen time at the end of the giggle. But I'm excited to see where it goes. I will say, Russell T Davies seems really hell-bent on, again, not making it woke, but like on being really clear about how the show is changing with the times. Like, there's a bit where one of the characters is in a wheelchair, and the TARDIS has a little ramp now. Like, if she wanted to get in the TARDIS, she could. And the way they execute that scene felt kind of corny. But at the same time, like, that's a bit of representation that is going to be very meaningful to a lot of people. It's just that seeing interviews with him about the show, it feels there's like a really matter-of-factness to the way he addresses those things. Like, I guess the Toymaker character had some sort of disturbing lineage of like Orientalism, God, or something. And I saw like some guy made a thread on Twitter explaining how that is a misnomer and that like that comes from later adaptations of the stories or something or whatever. And it was one of those threads that's so long that I just gave up. After the 15th tweet, I was like, is this ever going to end? Why didn't you put this on Substack? Why the fuck is this in Twitter form? So I don't actually know that history. I tried to learn, and then I was like, dude, I can't. This is never going to stop. But hearing Davies talk about it, it really felt like it doesn't seem like how Disney sort of like weaponizes identity politics for gain. It felt more sincere. Like he just is really trying to make the show as comfortable for as many people as possible. It's just that there's kind of a goofiness to the way he does it that makes me kind of feel like people are just going to continue mocking it and hating it. And it just made me mostly wonder, like, what other writers they're going to bring in to do episodes, um, other than just Russell, obviously. I'm wondering if they're ever going to get around to letting Grant Morrison write an episode of Doctor Who. Dying to see what that's like. Neil Gaiman got to do one. But yeah, I'm very excited about the show, and the official like BBC sanctioned Doctor Who TikTok page has been posting a bunch of 15th Doctor Shudigatwa like propaganda, for lack of a better term, and every time I see one, it's just got like sort of like black social media energy, like the memes are using like more black music and stuff, and I thought it was going to seem corny, but it doesn't seem corny. It really feels like whoever's in charge of this is just like, look, there's going to be a bunch of pissed off white people anyway. Why not just go whole hog, or whatever the British version of that is. It's not like they had him dance in the future or something, but it felt like it wouldn't be that far off. So who knows? But would love to see Future on an episode of Doctor Who as some kind of something. I think he'd be fun. He should act more. And then the only other thing I watch, really, like I said, is I watch a lot of pro wrestling. Maybe too much lately. I think in the new year I might scale back on. One of the things that I've been doing is I used to watch a variety of wrestling. I used to watch a lot of different stuff. Now I primarily watch whatever's televised. So I watch WWE's content. I watch most of Raw if I can, if I'm not at work, and most of SmackDown if I can, if I'm not at work. But I tend to be home during NXT the most, which is the show that comes on Tuesdays. It is like their developmental brand. It's all their new like students kind of like learning on the job. And my childhood favorite wrestler, Shawn Michaels, is the booker of that show, and he's, I think, doing a fantastic job. So I like NXT. It's like a more of a fun kind of variety vibe, in my opinion. Like, you don't have to be a diehard wrestling fan to get some enjoyment out of it. They try things. They don't always work, but I like the energy of the show. I'm pretty stoked. But then I watch AEW more than I probably would like to. I used to only watch like their pay-per-views, or like their big shows, or like if there was an episode that was announced that had a match I wanted to see, because they always just announce their entire match lineup really early. But now I watch almost every week, and it's like this weird relationship of like, I don't like it. I don't like the show. But every episode there usually be one thing I do like, usually just a match. I think their in-ring stuff is mostly solid. But the show has been not great for like much of this year. I feel like a lot of bad booking, a lot of weird decisions, and more to the point, when they lost CM Punk, it felt like on a spiritual level, the promotion was really wounded. More so even than like when Cody, one of the founders of the company, left and went to WWE. But the fact that CM Punk left and went back to WWE and went to this place that he said he hated and all this different stuff, a lot of the diehard AEW fan base has been fucking melting down over this. Punk came back to Raw. Well, he showed up at the Star Series. I talked about that a couple episodes ago. And then he came out to Raw, cut this like very, what people consider to be saccharine promo about being home and loving the fans and talking like, like a happy-go-lucky babyface, like not that different than kind of the promos like John Cena used to cut. So me personally, my first gut instinct was like, this is laying the groundwork for some deeper shit later. Like, he's doing this on purpose. Like, he knows he's kind of talking like a bit of a parody of the traditional WWE babyface, and maybe he's building to something interesting. I don't know. But then he did he showed up to SmackDown and had a longer promo segment, and he very masterfully brought up, all these different people on the roster. They did a lot of really fun segments that had him interacting with a bunch of guys he's never interacted with before, just kind of showing you, like, look at how many ways we can go with this. You know what I mean? Like, when Punk came back to wrestling in 2021 and went to AEW, there was a handful of guys I wanted to see him wrestle there, but not that many. And it got to the point that they would have him interact with randos on the card, And the way Tony Khan books that show, a lot of the wrestlers are just, they feel like it's just a guy. There's so many guys there who are very talented, but the way they're presented on television, they just seem interchangeable. So there were points where Punk was wrestling guys who to me were just a guy. And there would be nothing matches with no stakes, no story. Just, hey, Punk's wrestling this young up-and-comer. You know, he's going to put him over somehow. Like, not really. So the idea that here there's a bunch of new people for him to interact with on a show that focuses on that sort of thing is exciting. But watching that promo, the SmackDown promo from the other week, and seeing how animated and happy he was, and all these people online being like, he's so fake, he's such a sellout, I hate him, I hope he dies. The thing I noticed was like, well, he used to always be this guy. He was this punk rock guy. He was a revolutionary and all stuff. And it's like, no. He was an angry guy, and he was angry about his place within that company. He wanted to be treated as a top-level guy, a main eventer, an important star, not someone who would lose year-round to part-timers who would disappear and go back to Hollywood or whatever else they do, and then he would have to show up every day. He'd be there for the house shows. He'd be there on TV. And he never felt like he was afforded the right presentation, And in AEW, he sort of was treated that way, but because of the level of the people around him, it didn't feel as special to me. He had some good matches in AEW, man. I'm not gonna hate to that degree. I think his final match with Samoa Joe in Wembley before he left, I thought was actually really good, maybe the best match on the card. But it feels different to me. And I saw some people implying, like, you just think it's different because it's in WWE and, tribalism. And I'm like, no, he physically looks different. He looks healthier. He looks like he's in better shape. And maybe, just maybe, this is my read on things, maybe the reason he sounds different is we've never seen happy CM Punk. And by that I mean, like, all the things that he complained about for years that he could not get, he's getting. He's not going to have to work a full-time schedule. He's going to have more time off. He's going to get to main event WrestleMania. The only thing he's never done in his career that he wanted to do. His, dream, He's going to get to do these things. And he's going to get to be treated like the sort of part-timer guy he used to, criticize. It's not that dissimilar to what happened with John Cena. John Cena feuded with The Rock for 2 years straight, 3 years straight almost. And, he criticized The Rock for being a part-timer and for not loving wrestling and, going off to make movies. Cena makes movies now. He wrestles a couple of times a year. He's close to retiring. He became that guy that he fought. Now Punk is kind of doing the same thing. And I find it fascinating. And I feel like too many people are obsessed with the reading of CM Punk and WWE as being inherently false in the sense of he's betraying his values. He is not who he said he was. He has betrayed us. He is a sellout. He is of no value to me. And I can sort of understand that for some people. Especially if you're someone that really believed a lot of his gimmick as being who he really is as a person, which by itself is a little bit laughable. He's sort of always been more complicated than that, in my opinion. And again, this is a guy who I've been fucking watching CM Punk wrestle since I was in high school. I'm pushing 40. So I'm not some, I got the miles on me. We've never seen him like this before. We've never seen him. He's being paid when he wants to be paid. He's going to be able to take care of his body a little bit better. He spent a lot of time this week at the Performance Center with all the young kids, and there's a bunch of young kids there who grew up watching him, and if he gives them advice, they're going to want to hear it. He clearly had a bit of pushback in AEW when he tried to help the youngsters. He looks chill. And every day on the internet, there's a new permutation of hatred for him about, well, no, it's this. Today there was tweets about how, apparently, there's a news story going around that WWE is shopping the media rights to Monday Night Raw. Currently comes on USA. It's been coming on USA most of the history of the show. And the media rights deal expires, so they're trying to, see what network is going to pay them for the show. They had made a bunch of money a few years ago by moving SmackDown to Fox, which is a huge deal. It's the first time ever being on network TV like that. And that deal is not getting renewed, so they went back to USA. USA's paying them an exorbitant amount of money to have SmackDown back on the network. So they're trying to figure out what to do with Raw. There's a lot of different suitors. You know, they might just stay on USA. Who knows? But allegedly, thanks in no small part, allegedly, to CM Punk coming back to WWE, becoming Raw exclusive, popping quarter-hour ratings and getting good social media numbers, and et cetera, because of those factors, there's a rumor that WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery, David Zaslav's company, is interested in acquiring Raw. They're the same company that currently airs AEW. And the general belief is if they do acquire Raw, that means they're not going to renew AEW's media rights deals. They're not going to have two fucking wrestling networks on their show. And if AEW is moved off of TNT and TBS, they can probably get a TV deal someplace else. You know, I'm not like a doomer who thinks they're going to completely go under. But their business model, according to WrestleNomics content creator Brandon Thurston, who did some kind of in-depth, exhaustive look at their theoretical numbers, this has apparently been like their most profitable year in 4 years, and they lost roughly $30 to $40 million. For the promotion to become profitable, their plan is to get an increase on their media rights fees on the new deal. So it's not that they can't go anywhere and be on TV. It's that I don't know where they're going to go and get the money to make their current model profitable. So to me, I think some of the people saying, oh, if WWE goes to TNT, AEW's dead, they're owned by a billionaire, Mark, who will bleed money for several years to come just to have... This is like his favorite thing. He grew up a wrestling fan. He's rich enough to have his own wrestling promotion. Like, you know, rich guys spend $30 to $40 million a year on a lot worse, you know? So I could see this lasting for a long time. But if they get booted off of WBD television for WWE with the guy that they fired, who was their biggest draw, it's bad optics. It's bad for morale for all the people that work there. And more to the point, if so much of their audience was fueled by, their base was catered to by the idea of them being a competitor to WWE who would somehow usurp them. They really truly believe that was somehow going to happen, right? I remember Kevin Nash tells a story in one of his mini shoot interviews about being on a plane with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, who at the time was the president of WCW, the only post Vince McMahon Jr. national expansion promotion to actually beat WWE in any metric. For a while, they were kind of destroying them in the mid-90s. And Eric Bischoff got kind of zealous and said to these guys in this airplane that he was going to put Vince McMahon out of business. And Kevin said before he could speak up to the contrary, Hulk Hogan cut him off and said, brother, you're never going to put that man out of business. Like, you don't know him, you've never worked with him, you've never been in a room with him, that man is insane. And he is not going to he's not going to go down without a fight, essentially, you know. And, you know, they won that war, in some ways more because of WCW's own ineptitude, bad decision-making, AWOL Time Warner buying out. There's a lot of factors, whatever. I'm not going to fucking relitigate the Monday Night War for you people. But he won, you know? And for a lot of young people, a lot of people have grown up in a world where WWE is wrestling. And with that, there's been a lot of animosity towards the company. And look, post quote-unquote monopoly, there have been many periods where WWE is largely unwatchable. The show's not been good. There's been lots of problems in the company and things of that nature. But like, for the last few years, the last couple of years specifically, to me, the show has been hotter than it's maybe ever been. I've enjoyed it more than I ever have since probably my own childhood. I liked WWE when I was a kid, and WWF when I was a kid. And it's really taken the wind out of AEW sales, to me, like, sort of spiritually, culturally, optics-wise. And what I find interesting is that a lot of people, for the entire inception of AEW, loved to go online and talk about how they were going to put Vince McMahon out of business somehow, or beat them and take their crown as the biggest promotion in wrestling, which was insane thing to think at this point in time. And they were pro that. People were not pro competition. They were not pro, I want there to be an ecosystem of multiple promotions where wrestlers can make big money paydays. They were like, we want WWE to die. And they did not die. And in fact, the company got essentially stronger than ever, at least creatively, in my opinion. And now that there is a chance that they might run this company off of the network they're on, people have pivoted to, they're trying to be a monopoly again, they're trying to destroy this scrappy underdog, and it's like, their fan base can't choose between, we're a scrappy underdog fighting the big evil billionaires wrestling corporation, or reminding everybody that actually the owner is really rich. He's a billionaire. He's big and strong, and they're not going anywhere. And it's like, are you an underdog or not? Are you guys the working man's promotion, or are you, another corporate wrestling product that, even though you cater to nerds and diehards, you still have a lot of the same business practices that many of these fans have said they find unsavory. There are a lot of things that Tony Khan does as a promoter that if Vince McMahon did them, people would lose their fucking minds. And this is not me saying Vince McMahon is some good guy. He's very clearly like an actual real life villain, not just like a character. Like his history is horrendous. But now there's another billionaire who, by the way, clearly grew up idolizing Vince McMahon, who's also doing some shady stuff and not the same off camera, out of business antics. Obviously, I'm not going to go there. And the people are kind of cool with it, in WWE. If somebody was unhappy creatively with the way they were being booked, or that their character wasn't being taken care of very well, and they complained about it online or something, people would be like, yeah, free them, this isn't fair, let them leave, let them go to Japan. Now there's guys in AEW who are not being booked well, their character's not being preserved, they want to get out of their contracts, mostly so they can try to go back to WWE in some cases, and Tony's not letting them out of those contracts. And those same fans who said that about Finn are saying things like, well, they signed it, that's just how it is, right? I mean, like, you shouldn't sign a deal if you didn't want to honor it, and stuff like that, or criticizing the wrestlers for speaking out about their unhappiness with the company. And the one major thing I've seen today, specifically, why I'm talking about this late in the pod, I'm sorry, is that I've seen a lot of fans on sort of that side of Twitter, of AEW fans, say, I don't understand why so many people want to see AEW fail. And it's like, I mean, there's definitely people that want to see that company fail. I'm not one of them. I believe in a diverse wrestling ecosystem personally, even if some of the options are not things I personally like. I want them to exist. I want people to get paid. But there is this sense that when WWE was really shitty and they were the only game in town and things were not good, quote unquote, that these fans criticized it every week. They would watch a show they claimed to hate, and they would hijack it at live events. They would pay money to go and criticize or like chant things that were like disruptive to the program. They would give their money to something they say they hated to do this, okay? Because they wanted the company to get better. They wanted Vince McMahon to die, and they wanted some magical savior to make it good again, etc., etc. So, I mean, Vince isn't dead, but he appears to be in a very different role in the company. It's the first time ever WWE has not been exclusively driven by his ideas. And shit's prosperous, man. The show is good. They have more over stars right now than they have at one time in a very long time. Things are really, really going good, okay? By any measure. And AEW is struggling in some ways. And rather than like acknowledge that they are clearly struggling in some ways and try to better it, every piece of criticism online about that show is like, you're just doing this in bad faith. You just hate this company. You want to see it fail. Da da da. And it's like, no, I like watching AEW when it's good. It's just not, to me, good very often. And I would love it if it was better. Now, I would not pay money to go to one of their shows and chant CM Punk's name or some shit if he's not there, like some of these people did 10 years ago. But I am just astonished that when it was a competition and they were like the scrappy up and comer, it was like, yeah, go them. Competition is good for everybody. It's good for the thing. It's like, okay, well now the competition that you allegedly stoked into getting better is getting better. It's supposed to go both ways. And I don't like when people try to characterize AEW as being like the little man, the everyman that this big company is bullying, because the owner of this company is a fucking billionaire. I'm sorry. Like, he's also on cable. There's never been a wrestling promotion that began with this much startup capital. You know, it's in my opinion, it's unjust to characterize them as like being scrappy underdogs. The only thing stopping him from competing better and like matching what's going on in WWE is not he has the money. It's not money. Obviously, they don't have the same brand power and things like that. They don't have the history and all that, of course. But there are things they could do to make the show better. And their stubborn refusal to acknowledge that there's even a problem. If you can't even do that, then you're fucked. You know, like they're repeating so many business and creative decisions that other companies would under from. It's like they're speed running them. It's like they're trying to cover all the greatest hits of failure in this business. And it's just kind of frustrating to see, man. And a lot of the people that work there are miserable about it. And now, if they tweet about it, they get fucking fined at work. You know what I mean? Like, you guys are the pro worker company, and you're going to fine guys for complaining about their jobs? Are you fucking serious? And that's cool? You know, it's just crazy. So, anyway, I say all that to say that these people are trying to act as though CM Punk is personally brokering a deal between WWE and WBD as vengeance for getting fired. And they cannot fathom that the network, this company, could look at the numbers and go, well, if we're going to spend this many millions of dollars, we may as well get the leader in this space, right? Why would we keep having these guys on here, you know? These guys, every time we do brand cross promotion between them and like the NBA or whoever, it always looks like weird. It's always lopsided because you're like, who the fuck are these guys? The only time I remember them really trying to do that sort of thing, they had Chris Jericho at an NBA game, and people were all tweeting about how he looked like a baby mama because he's like out of shape. You know, like there's just their penetration in the mainstream is like nothing, and they don't want to change that. And you can't be that niche for that much money. You know what I mean? Like, it's why people talk about like certain kind of indie films you can make with a certain amount of money. But if you want to spend $100 million, there are certain, unfortunately, there are certain market forces you have to be aware of with that kind of cash. And this is a promotion that wants to run like an indie, like a super indie that plays in a warehouse once a month, but they're on television 3 times a week all across the country. And they're not adapting to it, well, in my opinion. And it's a little bit frustrating to see. But I will say, I've been inspired by how happy CM Punk looks, and I aspire to be that happy in 2024, somehow. So, okay, we've been going on for a little bit long. Let's do the questions, and then I'll let you guys get out of here. And by get out of here, I mean, I don't know, press stop on your player. I don't know. Okay, I have 3 questions. Question 1. Mike Duquette asks, hey Duke, last minute question for the pod, whenever you get to it. Did they penalize or end Straw Hat Goofy? I never see him anymore. Duke is joking about the fact that I went on that rant on here about Straw Hat Goofy, a TikToker, entertainment industry influencer who I do not like, and I think is corny and lame. And Duke is generously implying that maybe I ended that man's career, and I don't have the reach to do that, obviously. But I really think it's just, I mean, he hasn't gone anywhere. He's still on TikTok and stuff. I don't see him anymore because I think I've reported enough of his videos for hate speech that the algorithm has finally left me alone. I have to see him in his fucking tiny mic talking about, the Avengers or whatever. But I feel like, in general, on a larger area, people are becoming more wary of the movie TikTok influencer types and are more transparently aware of the fact that these guys are just shills, and that very few of them have any kind of useful media analysis, and that many of them are just fucking glazing, superhero movies to get invited to premieres. And look, I like premieres. I want to dress up nice and like go hang out on a red carpet and stuff. Uh, I don't I don't know if I would enjoy it if I had to put out such garbage that many of them put out to do it. Um, I don't think that I'm not a sellout because I have morals or something. I don't think I'm a sellout because I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know how to make content like that. I would, I fantasize about becoming a grifter all the time. I think I would be a really fun right wing grifter. I think I could be really good at being sort of like the biracial Alex Jones. I think I could make a lot of money off that. My problem, other than sleeping at night, would be that I don't know how I would keep the artifice up without like snickering. Like if I got to be on Fox News or something and like I made the grip that far, I would like go too far with it. I would like push it a little too far. People would be like, okay, you're obviously kidding. I'm like, no, I'm not kidding. They would look, this is clearly satire. We know what you're doing. I'd be like, no, this is for real. I don't like poor people. Like I wouldn't be able to maintain the facade, and that's sort of a bummer because I think it would be fun. I'm not joking. Like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, man, I'm tired of working for a living. What if I just lied to people on the internet? What if I just did that instead? That could be cool. So yeah, I didn't end him, but I like that we can collectively pretend he doesn't exist anymore. I think that's really cool. Thanks for the question, Duke. Love you, man. Duke's an incredibly, really good guy. Um, Rob Secundus asks, question, at the end of the year, with letterbox data and all that, what kind of trends do you look for in your year? Do you end up setting goals for the next year based on what you did not watch the previous? So, I will say, the only thing I don't really set goals with Letterboxd. I mean, I used to set target numbers for volume only. Like, I used to every year, at the very least, I want to have one movie a day. At the very least, I want to hit 365 when the year's wrapped up. The last few years, that shit has gone down. 2019, I think I hit 600 or something. That was like my heaviest year ever. And I haven't gone that high since. 2020, I was pretty high, but I didn't beat 600. And then last year, I don't remember where I stopped at. This year, I'm at 215 or something. I don't know how many more movies I'm going to be able to get in before the month is out. But so volume is usually what I go for. But also, as the year progresses, if I start to see accidental trends, not things I did on purpose, like I start to notice, hey, I watched a lot of this. Or there's a filmmaker who I watched several of his movies. I might just go watch the rest of them to sort of cement that person as my most watched director. This year, though, I can just pull it up. What am I talking about? All of my numbers right now are like, there's no clear winners at the moment, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like, this will probably be different by the time the actual year is over, but let's see here. I'm scrolling. I'm sorry. My most watched actor is Tom Cruise. I don't think he's probably going to stay there. Everyone else is like tied for like second with like half as many movies. Somehow Kane Hodder got up on here. Thanks a lot, October. And then most watched director is Chris Nolan with 5 movies, but everyone else is very close. It's like a big 3-way tie for the next spot. So that could go anyway. We'll see how the end of the year goes. I might go back and finish some Friedkin movies I've never seen. I had a lot of fun filming some of those gaps. So that's probably the main thing that I do differently is I will just try to like, if I see a pattern emerge, I will try to just continue that pattern. I'll try to follow it. I'll think, well, on some level, this is where I was going. I'll just keep going there. But yeah, at the start of the year, I don't really. My first month of the year is always like kind of random, weird viewing habits, and I just try to follow whatever my mood is. And then stuff just kind of comes up that way, if that makes sense. Like, I find that every time I've tried to be really intentional about what I watch, and I'm going to watch more of this or that, like I almost never stick through it. I've had 3 different years where I wanted to watch more documentaries, and like I didn't, you know. But I do feel like the last couple of years I've definitely watched more foreign films. Like I'm more willing to watch things that are from other countries. And I like doing it because I feel like it sort of forces me to pay more attention and like not get distracted by my phone when I'm home. I really wanted to watch a movie yesterday, but again, it's so fucking hard to hear in here. So thank you. That was a good question, Rob. And then Golden Boy asks, question for the pod. If 3 biopics can be made about people, past or present, who don't currently have biopics, who would you choose? This could include music, artists, groups, filmmakers, writers, obscure figures, whoever. Thanks. Well, thank you for the question, first of all. Second of all, I have one specifically that I've always dreamed of making a movie myself. And then 2 others I'm just going to riff. When they announced that Chris Hemsworth was going to play Hulk Hogan in a movie, I thought that was something very dumb and that they shouldn't do it. And then I saw Baz Luhrmann's Elvis, and I became obsessed with the idea of Baz Luhrmann making a Hulk Hogan movie. I don't even care who plays Hulk Hogan, I'm not going to lie. I just think that could be astonishing. And I think that Baz would do so much with the iconography of Hulkamania. And it would be, to me, it would just be everything. I want that so badly. So that's 1. 2... I don't want this anymore, but I used to very badly want a really good Kanye West biopic. Before I sort of severed my fandom, it was something I thought about a lot. Like, how would I do? What would I do? And I came up with a lot of stuff. I'm not going to share any of it, but I had a lot of ideas. And what ended up happening is I got to a point where, like, following his life, it would be like I would have to stop the movie at some point because I don't even know what to do with the rest of this shit. You know what I mean? I even considered just like I've always wondered about certain historical figures. If you made a biopic about them and then you just like veered off from the truth, I don't mean like you did a hagiography thing and you like were rose-colored glasses. No, I mean like you just pretend it was different. Like, in mine, he would just get in another car accident, like, right after Life of Pablo. And then that would be the end of the story. Not that I want him to die or something like that. I'm just saying that, like, I think from watching a story, if I had to watch Kanye West's life story, the final act up to now would be unwatchable. So I wouldn't even want to deal with that. But my final answer, my real serious one, is something I've given a ton of thought to, is I've always wanted to make a movie about Eddie Graham and his son Mike Graham, who are professional wrestlers. Eddie Graham was the promoter of the Florida territory from like the 70s to like 1990 or whatever he died. And his son Mike Graham was one of his wrestlers. And both men killed themselves. And Eddie killed himself, Mike killed himself, and I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, that Mike's son also committed suicide. And I think maybe Eddie's father did. It's like this whole progression of suicide. And having seen the Iron Claw and the Von Erich curse stuff is somewhat similar to this story, but like once I saw the movie, I was like, okay, cool. They did not make my Eddie Graham movie worthless, so I felt very good about that. The thing that has always fascinated me about their story is that Eddie Graham was a heel in New York for Vince McMahon Sr., and he was very vicious, he was violent and scary, and he was really hated, like that heels used to be. And he was so hated, in fact, that like it made life hard for his family. Like his kids would get picked on, his wife would be ostracized in public and stuff. He was making really good money, he was drawing money as a heel, but like people thought it was real, a significant amount of it, obviously. And they thought this woman was married to a monster. Like this guy's fucking terrible. He's awful. When he made enough money to get into promoting, and he bought a stake in the Florida territory and ended up kind of running it, he made all these changes. And one of the things he did was make himself, as the promoter, really like a good face for the company. So he would like do charity stuff, and like he basically made it so that he was an important figure in the community and a trusted figure and someone of like high moral value. Even though he promoted wrestling and wrestling was violent, he presented himself as being sort of above that violence now. And I feel like probably to give his family a better life in some way. And I've always thought that was fascinating. Like he like woke up one day and came up with a new gimmick for his real life. And that's always what fascinates me about pro wrestling in general, is how much of it is about artifice and dueling identities and things like that. But the thing that I was fascinated about Mike is, if you guys have ever heard, The sort of a meme in wrestling stuff is the meme of someone not drawing a dime. Like, you know, drawing money is like you as a wrestler in some way get people to come see you. They buy tickets, they watch the show, whatever. That's what a draw is. And when they talk about someone not being a draw, there's this great clip of Mike Graham from a shooter interview in the early 2000s, before he killed himself, talking about various wrestlers who never drew a dime. And people made a montage of him just being like, that guy never drew a dime. Not a dime, never a dime. And that, to me, is kind of always his legacy. But one of the things that comes out from criticisms of him is he said that about a lot of younger, smaller wrestlers. Guys like Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, all these guys. That they didn't draw money in WCW, and they felt like they were being creatively held back. But he was like, look, these people they weren't getting the quarter hours other guys were. You know what I mean? And obviously, the argument can be made that if they were presented better, they would, as they would be presented better in a different company, and some of them would get over it. Whatever. People criticized him for pointing out that he was never as big as his dad, and that he himself was a smaller wrestler at the time. He wrestled as like a junior heavyweight in a lot of places, and that he was not some big draw either. And people look at that as being like, you're just jealous of these guys and that you just hate them. And the thing I liked about Mike from having watched interviews with him is he did not strike me as a guy who thought highly of himself. And I don't mean like he was down on himself. What I mean is that he knew what his father's philosophy of professional wrestling was and what a star needed to be, and he knew he wasn't that. He was good at other things. He was good at tag team wrestling. He was good at wrestling as a junior guy, but he was not going to be the star of the company. And so many other wrestling promoters tried to push their sons as stars, and Mike never really had his dad do that to him because like he really believed in the reality of the business and making it real and making it believable, and that's why they drew so much money. And Mike knew he didn't fit in that. But he came up in an era where not being the star, the world champion, the main guy was not a bad thing. It was okay if you made a good living off of wrestling and you were a job guy or you were a mid-carder or whatever your thing was. Everyone has a different role in the card is how people think. Nowadays, every wrestler thinks they are the star. They need to be the best wrestler. And if they're not given a shot at it, then it's not fair. And a lot of modern fans think that you have to just hand out chances at that. They don't want to acknowledge that it's sort of an important role. It's an important thing. You don't just make anybody do that. And I always hated that people would say about Mike, like, well, you weren't this, you weren't that. And I feel like if you ever asked him that, he would go, I know. That's why I wouldn't want me on the show. Like, I feel like he practiced what he preached. I don't think he was someone who thought he was above the criticisms he gave other people. I feel like his dedication to the business, and specifically his father's, belief about how to run it, was such that he knew he was not the guy. And when I first heard about their story, I just assumed he had killed himself because he couldn't live up to his dad's standards or something. But their story sounds much more complicated than that. And I've always thought it would be a fun thing. I shouldn't say fun, that sounds kind of exploitative. But I always thought it would be an interesting thing to explore on screen. And I think that it would be really, really interesting. That's a story I've always kind of wanted to tell. To the point that I thought even like maybe if it could go off into being like an original story, like just loosely based on them, if I didn't want to have to trouble the family for their rights and stuff or something, like just inspired by, maybe might be a better route to go with that. But that's one of my sort of like dreams, is to tell that story somehow. Yeah, that was a good question. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. So that's it for me for this episode. Once again, I'm sorry for however this sounds. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you for listening to me, jaw about a bunch of like personal stuff. I appreciate that too. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you can't see my face, please still like it if you liked it. Subscribe if you loved it. Leave me comments. Ask me questions for future episodes. Anything you want to do, really. And then if you're listening to this on wherever podcasts are heard, just like share it with friends and stuff. Tell people about me, about how cool I am or whatever. Yeah, so we have one more episode for the year next week, unless something else fucking explodes in my life, but I think we're gonna pull it off. And I just want to remind everybody to just be really good to each other and yourself. Really, really, really be good to yourself. You have to. Not everybody else is going to. Don't abdicate that responsibility to be kind to yourself, but also be kind to others. Don't be an asshole. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you guys so much. We will talk soon.